Well, Casey, the first ever Hard Fork Live is tonight, and frankly, I have no idea how we're going to start this thing.
Oh, Kevin, don't worry about it. I've already taken care of everything.
What do you mean?
Well, look, I knew you had a lot on your plate. You've been busy with a million things. I thought, leave it to me. I will plan the start of the show.
And what are we doing?
Look, I think I'm a little bit leery of telling you because I think you're going to complain about, what would it cost and what is everyone going to say and what everyone is going to think. So what I would love for you to do is just kind of trust me and put on this outfit and I'll take care of the rest.
Casey, I cannot possibly wear this. This is the New York Times we're talking about here. This is a serious journalistic enterprise. This is not some low-rent theater production.
Oh, really, Kevin? A straight man is going to tell me about style during Pride Month? I don't think so, honey. Put this on. You're going to look great.
Oh,
As they say at the Men's Warehouse, you're going to love the way you look.
Start the show!
I'm Kevin Roose, a tech columnist at the New York Times.
I'm Casey Newton from Platformer.
And this is Hard Fork Live!
Oh my goodness.
Wow. Should we take off our band leader jackets?
Let's take off the jackets.
Okay.
Give
us a second.
They've served their purpose.
It's very hot. These
That's
are
right.
these are Amazon's finest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I leave this with you? Thank you.
Will you guard this
Yeah,
with your
with
life?
your life.
Yes.
Maybe just
Oh, the baton too,
the ribbon,
probably. I
yeah,
don't think we'll
probably
need that for our interviews.
tripping hazard. There you go. Thank you.
Wow, thank you to Brass Animals. That's the band you just heard. They're
We
incredible.
love Brass Animals.
They will be back later, and thank you all for coming. What a surreal
Oh my
thing this
God.
is. I mean, we record this podcast in a booth that's about 2 feet by 2 feet, and we just send it out there, and we think people listen, and we hope that people listen, but it's really surreal to see it all in person.
Yeah, it's so much fun to have all the energy in this building. We've been, talking as the hours have been counting down to this. In 2021, Kevin and I just started texting each other all the time. We felt like there was one era of tech that was ending and another that was about to begin. And we just wanted to talk about it to a bunch of people. And it's a really long way from there to this moment right now.
Yeah, and one of the questions I get asked most frequently is, what is a hard fork? Casey, what is a hard fork?
Okay, so something a little embarrassing about Kevin and I is that we had a crypto phase.
It happens.
It happens.
Some people go goth.
Yeah. Talk to your teens
Yeah.
about crypto.
Yes.
And at the time, we thought, well, it's 2021. Our show will probably be about crypto for the rest of time. Hard fork is a really important concept in crypto. Let's build a show around it.
Yes. But we're so excited for tonight. And Casey, you look great, by the way.
Oh, thank you,
Doesn't
Kevin.
he look great?
Kevin! It's very nice of you.
Now, a couple weeks ago, you told me you were getting a new outfit for this show, and I thought, shit, I have to get a new outfit too. So I went on a little bit of an adventure trying to figure out what to wear tonight. And as I do when I'm in times of crisis, I turn to AI. So I made a little slideshow about my adventure. I hope it's okay if I show it.
Okay, great, yes.
Yeah, I love a slideshow. You know that. So I started with ChatGPT, where I put in the prompt, give me some ideas for a glow up. I said, do not change my face. Just give me a glow up. Make me look a little better. ChatGPT, with its infinite wisdom, came back with this. Okay. Very stylish, but as you'll notice if you look closely, not me.
Can I just ask, why did you choose the angle of like the floor looking up at you?
I don't know.
Okay.
It was in the office. Okay, then I asked, I got another example, and it said that, okay. Great hoodie, still not me.
Very cool hoodie.
One more example I asked for, it put me in a nicer room, but again, if you zoom in, not my face. So ChatGPT really saw my request for a glow up and said, I can't help you there. We're going to need to involve plastic surgery.
Yeah, the tech is only so powerful at this point.
So then I thought, okay, maybe it's just ChatGPT, maybe Gemini will do a better job. So I said to Gemini the same prompt, don't change my face. And it said,
Wait, okay. I know this is like a joke example, but on many days I do feel like you are serving Kirkland's signature. I'm just gonna, okay.
Gemini said, what if you looked like David Beckham? That would be good. But I didn't give up there because there's an app out there called Doji. It's sort of like a high fashion thing where you can sort of scan your body and your face and it'll kind of render this 3D image of you and then tell you what to wear. So I put my photos into Doji and gave it these photos, and I said, create my likeness and tell me what to wear. And so it came back with a suggestion that looked like this. Thanks, Doji. What do you think?
Like, I would have worn that.
Yeah, I mean, you could pull that off. I'm not
Okay.
sure I could. Its next suggestion was this.
Wait, again, I love the jacket.
As they say on Succession, it's a ludicrously capacious bag. And I really loved its final suggestion for what I should wear tonight.
Okay. And that, my friends, is called AGI.
Yeah. So that's what I'll be wearing in the second half of the show. Get ready. Okay, so having failed at having AI dress me for tonight, I did what every straight man does in times of distress. I went to Uniqlo, so that's
Good
what
job.
I'm doing tonight.
That's good job. Smart man.
Yeah.
Smart man. Well, I think it turned out great, Kevin.
Thank you.
And we have a really great show for you. I want to say, you guys sold out this building before we announced a guest. So I want to say thank you for that. Thank you for trusting us. And we wanted to reward your trust in us with a really special show.
Yes.
So tonight, you're going to see such things as the CEO of Stripe, Patrick Collison, is going to be here. The CEO of Skip, Kathryn Zealand, is here with an incredible demo. And from OpenAI, Sam Altman and Brad Lightcap are going to be here. And on top of all of that, sitting on the stage like Chekhov's gun, a Stairmaster. What is going to happen on the Stairmaster?
Who can say?
Who can say? We only promise you it will go off by the third act.
And before we get started, in grand Hard Fork tradition, we should do our disclosures, because we're going to be talking a little bit about AI tonight. So, Casey, you want to take it away?
Who's excited to hear the disclosures? Amazing. Well, I'm proud to say my boyfriend works in Anthropic. He may even be here tonight. Love you, sweetheart.
And I work at the New York Times Company, which is suing OpenAI and Microsoft for copyright violations alleged to the training of large language models. Did I get that right?
Yeah, period. Well, you know, the last thing I would say before we get started, Kevin, is it's also just a dream to be doing the show here in San Francisco. San Francisco is my home. It's where we make the show every week. It's where so many of the changes we talk about every week are happening. You know, if I have any regrets, it's just I feel like San Francisco has been changing a lot all around us, and we've been so heads down, it's kind of hard to keep track of all the changes.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And if I could change one thing about tonight, I think we should have invited someone with a little bit of relevant expertise here, someone who really understands San Francisco politics. Who would that be?
Kevin, I told you to put the door on Do Not Disturb.
Let's see who it is.
Who's at the door? It's the mayor of San Francisco, Daniel Lurie! Hi, how are you? Nice to meet you.
Hey, thanks for coming.
Oh my goodness, please have a seat.
Can I Can I go on the Stairmaster?
If you must.
Yes.
This is San Francisco
Hi,
Mayor Daniel Lurie.
Wow. What a fun surprise. Thanks for stopping by, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for bringing everybody to San Francisco.
Absolutely. I think they're happy to be here. You happy to be here? Well, since you're here, let's toss a couple of questions at you. You've been in office for just about 6 months now, and the tech community, I would say, has generally been very supportive of what you're doing, and you've even formed a council of tech advisors that includes our guest from later tonight, Sam Altman. So what kind of advice are they giving you, and are you taking it?
Well, Sam was on our transition committee, and now we have something that we started called the Partnership for San Francisco, where we have leaders from across business and arts and culture giving us advice and helping to, cheerlead for our city. You all are seeing the revolution happening. If there's no better place in the world in terms of an ecosystem than San Francisco. And there was a lot of talk for a number of years about how San Francisco was done. That was a bad bet. As everybody knows, the guests that you have tonight, you'd have to fly them in, but they're living right here in San Francisco. It's all happening right here. Yeah. You talked about Anthropic. You got Dario, you got OpenAI, you got Salesforce, you got Databricks. Cities across the globe would die to have one of those companies, and they're all home-based right here in San Francisco. So I'm talking to them. I'm talking to arts and culture leaders, and we're doing everything in our power to create the conditions for success, and we're off to a good start.
Now, we're going to be talking a lot about AI tonight. I'm curious, is AI helping you in your job at City Hall?
We are absolutely talking to all the companies, saying, how can we get their help on synthesizing all the data that comes in? We have 58 different departments at City Hall, and they don't always talk to each other. And so we have great intellectual horsepower here. We got great universities. We got these great companies, and we are engaging with them, and they are already starting to help, and you'll see more in the coming years.
I feel like governments don't have a reputation always for having state-of-the-art technology. Is there anything you wish that you had that you don't have, or that the sort of tech could do for citizens here that it can't yet?
Well, I think just making sure that we're crunching the data. We have over 34,000 city employees, and getting them to talk to each other, understand what they're going through. I'll tell you a quick story. There were not staff meetings going on between our large agencies, and I instituted something every Tuesday morning. So this morning, 9 a.m., we had the 20 large agencies. They get around the table. This is not tech. This is old school, but it starts with old school.
Yeah, this technology is called the table.
Yes, that is right.
But
by the way, tech doesn't work if you don't communicate with each other. That's why I think everybody's got to be back in the office. A lot of these AI companies, they're in the office 5-6 days a week. I went to OpenAI's new office by Chase. They are in the office because they know it doesn't work unless you're communicating. And so our department heads are meeting with each other once a week, gaining knowledge from each other, seeing how they can help each other. And the tech then follows that. And so we're hoping to lean in with all these great companies.
Now, I have to ask you, Mayor, about your social media presence. You are very active on short-form video apps such as Instagram Reels and TikTok. You post more Instagram Reels than a Gen Z clout chaser. And honestly, they're pretty good.
Oh,
I would
okay.
say, grading on the curve of politicians, they're great. And I'm curious, who does your social media? What's the strategy there? Is it working?
I was told, there was a review of my Instagram in the Chronicle, and it said that I had not yet made the camera my lover. So I have work to do.
That's on OnlyFans.
Listen, I'm having fun with it. We know there's so much noise out there, and to break through and to communicate with people like you all do so well with your show, we felt like we had to reach people directly, and it is taking off. You all can check it out, and you can learn what it's like to be mayor and to see all the small businesses that are amazing in San Francisco, the restaurants, the bars. I just went, in honor of Pride, I just stopped by before to a bar that I've passed so many times. It's called The Cinch.
Yeah.
Gay bar on.
Shout out.
With Pride Week. We went by there just now. And it's been there for years. And it's amazing. And like, I want to highlight what is so special about San Francisco. And that's what we're trying to do. And I usually just give the mic over to the restaurant owner or the arts leader and say, what do you do? And the city gets to see it. And that's what it's all about.
It's awesome. Well, we've got to let you go, but before we go, I wanted to ask, could we make a reel with you? Would you make one with us?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right now? Okay,
all
let's
right,
stand
here we
up.
go.
Let's do that.
Oh, but I don't have my phone. Oh, you got your phone.
I got it, yeah.
Okay, oh boy.
I'll do it.
Oh,
so
boy.
we can just turn it into selfie mode right here, and we can just go. So you are the maestro here, so you got to direct it, okay.
All right, I'm on Hard Fork right now. Hey, you two, tell us what's going on here. This is your first live audience.
First live audience. We're here for Hard Fork Live at SF Jazz, having a great time here with Mayor Lurie.
Let's go. And what I got to tell everybody, got to tell your audience that San Francisco, we are on the rise. When we are at our best, there is no better city on the planet than San Francisco. Let's go, San Francisco.
And that's on period. Thank you very much, Mayor Lurie, for stopping by.
Thank you.
Oh, my goodness. Kevin, we've already had so much show, and it's literally just begun.
I didn't even tell him that the most relevant thing was that you didn't get your permit for your hot tub.
That's right.
Mayor Lurie, if you need to raise revenue, I know a guy.
Well, this next guest I'm extremely excited about. I have known Patrick Collison and his brother John since the early 2010s. They were recently arrived in the city. They were starting to build a company called Stripe. And in the years since, it has grown into a juggernaut. And Patrick, I think, has become one of the most interesting and influential thinkers in tech outside of his day job. He and Tyler Cowen wrote a piece in The Atlantic about the need for a new science of progress. He also is the co-founder of the ARC Institute, which is doing a bunch of really important biomedical research. And just to top it off, in April, he joined the board of Meta, which is currently reshuffling its AI team in ways that might be fun to talk about. So I'm extremely excited to welcome to the stage Patrick Collison. Hey! It's real. Hi, how are you?
Hey, good to see you.
All
right.
Patrick, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
How are you?
I'm doing well. It's wonderful to be here where I've come to so many long now talks here, and now it's you guys.
There is no longer now than a podcast, is what they say.
So, Patrick, you are a big proponent of what they call the abundance agenda. I think I can say that without paying a royalty to Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson. What is the most urgent abundance-related need right now? Is it housing, land use, fast-tracking approvals for new drugs? What is it?
Building.
And why is that?
I think, look, there are so many domains where we need more progress than we've garnered. The rate of improvement of life expectancies has really diminished, and there are still you still get colds, right? Like that's crazy. We're on a trajectory supposedly to invent nuclear fusion and AGI and so many, but like we haven't cured even the common cold, right? So there are a lot of challenges we face in many domains. There are many pursuits in science and technology where we should be going much faster. However, I think the place where the constraints are most unnecessary, most self-imposed, and easiest to at least in principle, easiest to address are in any kind of physical construction. And like, by the way, California and San Francisco used to stand for this, right? We have the Kaiser signs around the bay, and the Marin ship was in California. Those stories of the ships that got built in a day, like they happened here. And so I think California is kind of this funny superposition where in the 40s, 50s, 60s, I mean, actually, my favorite example of this is Treasure Island we built to celebrate the construction of the Golden Gate Bridge. We were just so drunk on the fervor of having finished the Golden Gate Bridge. We're like, we were just caught up in the momentum of it, and we're like, well, let's just go build another thing. And so we built an island. And so California and San Francisco used to stand for this, and now California. My favorite example of this is, we passed the ballot prop in 1996 for California high-speed rail, And they used to have on the website, you had to go there and the forecast completion date was 2033. And now I just checked recently, and they've now taken it down. So it used to be a 37-year project, and now who knows? So
yeah, it's so interesting. I was interviewing someone once about like their AI forecast and how everything was going to change in the next like 2 or 3 years. We were going to have super intelligences and robot factories, and we're sitting in Berkeley and looking out over the Berkeley sort of downtown, and I said, do you think any of that will get like permitted by zoning? And he was like, no. So like even the people thinking about the wildest possible futures cannot imagine land use reform in the Bay Area.
Yeah, well, another, I think, kind of funny example of this was, there was the sort of announced aspirational city project in Solano County back a couple of years ago. You guys covered it on the podcast. But I thought kind of the response was sort of funny, where thousands of times in its history, and America's history is only a couple hundred years, America has decided, hey, let's build a city, and that is a thing that has in fact ensued, and there is a city there today, and it's happened even reasonably recently with Irvine and so forth. But the response to that was astonishment and people aghast and that kind of audacity was kind of offensive. Yeah. But when somebody says, hey, we're going to create a super intelligence, populate the cosmos, we're like, yep, seems pretty reasonable. Well, when someone says we're going to build a new city in California, it's like, that's just ridiculous.
I mean, I do think that there is an element separate from that, which is that with a lot of tech, I think some folks just feel like they've gotten a bad bargain, right? Maybe with social media, they don't quite like the bargain that they've gotten, or they worry about the environmental impact of some of these technologies. And so sometimes I do think technologists come along and they say, we want to take a crack at this, and people just think, I don't actually trust you to do that. And I imagine you have done some thinking about this as somebody who is trying to bring your influence to bear on public issues. So how do you reckon with that?
Well, you've the Homer car problem. Nobody wants it. Yeah. So I think that in many domains, I think it's the case that if you go and you talk to the insiders and the people who've been, plowing some lonely furrow for a long time, they are brimming with ideas for how it could be done better. And it's not a matter of somebody careering in from outside with some delusions of grandeur and some sense for how it could all be done differently. I think in many cases it's actually about unleashing the ideas kind of inside the system that are existing and not yet manifested. And one of my favorite examples and one of the most striking examples of this is we ran a survey a couple of years ago of practicing top-tier scientists. And we asked them, not whether you had more money, but if you could spend your current funding dollars however you like, because today funding dollars come with all sorts of restrictions, and they're allocated by committees and by consensus, and with kind of tight field definitions and so forth. So we asked these scientists, if you could keep your current funding level, but if you could spend those dollars however you want, how much would your research agenda change? And I thought that the results might be striking. Maybe a third of scientists would actually like to be doing something else. 79% of respondents in that survey said they would change their research agenda a lot. And that just blew my mind, because we go to, these scientists, they're so self-sacrificing. Like, they could go and make $1 bajillion, or these days $100 bajillion by doing something more lucrative, and they've decided to try to better humanity by working inside the academy. They spend decades training, and then 80% are telling us that they would be doing something very different. Not if they had more money, but if they had fewer strictures attached to their current money. So I think that's one striking example. That was one of the influences for ARC. But I think in many of these cases, whether it's urban design and urban planning, or any kind of construction or science, whatever, I think the insiders often know how to do it a lot better.
Yeah. You mentioned the 100 million figure, so I have to ask, you are on the board of Meta, which is currently reshuffling its AI teams, building a super intelligence team, and reportedly offering people $100 million to come work for them. Have you been helping with that? And what kind of advice are you giving to Mark Zuckerberg about that?
You add the payments guy to the board, and then all of a sudden, I've just had one board meeting, so I shouldn't comment.
Yeah. Okay, well, let me ask you about something you can comment on then, which is this idea of agentic commerce, which I've heard a bunch of times recently, and I think it means something like robots buying stuff. This is a big idea in the tech industry right now. that you're just going to have these bots going out and buying things on your behalf, or that there's going to be agents transacting with each other. Right now, Stripe is a platform to help people, human beings, pay for things. But I can go on Operator and have it buy me a pizza or a burrito. I imagine
If you have 2 hours for it to complete that process.
Yes.
Yeah.
I imagine you're planning for a world in which this kind of thing is happening more. What does that look like, and is Stripe still necessary in that world?
Well, look, Stripe enables the transactions and the money movement, beneath the surface, and so we're to some extent agnostic about and enthusiastic about all the different modalities in which that might happen. And when Stripe started, mobile wasn't nearly as big a thing as it is today, and stable coins didn't exist, and so forth. So we're enthusiastic about the reinvention here. And from my standpoint, the variety that one can benefit from on the internet is tremendous, and I think it's amazing that you can have so many niche businesses that are serving these preposterously large global audiences and customer bases that couldn't exist without the internet, right? Because if you're only restricted to the hinterland that you locally serve, you get much less. There's much less that's possible. But very few people say, the thing I love about internet commerce is after I click on the thing that I am brought to sort of a
checkout flow.
Like a 30-field form, to fill out and then fax it, and parts of it in Latin. It feels very antiquated. And so I think the promise for these, I don't know. I think agents sounds very kind of highfalutin, but these critters to go and to sort of be the paperwork minions for you. To sort of dispatch one and say, hey, go, handle that, and then, I will resume whatever else I was doing. I think that's very promising, and I think it's going to be, better for everyone.
Will the agents use dollars or crypto?
Well, I know I'm here with well-known crypto booster Casey Newton, but I think they will use amounts denominated in the local currency. So I think in the U.S. things will be in dollars and euros in Ireland and so forth. And I think there's kind of an irony where with the invention of crypto, it is an amazing kind of computer science invention and technology and so forth. Obviously, the sort of initial conception of Bitcoin was, we're going to throw off the shackles of our, of the monetary tyranny and oppression that we're sort of subjected to, and liberate ourselves with this new currency. And you look at Bitcoin has obviously garnered a lot of traction, but a majority of cryptocurrency transactions today are in stablecoins, are dollar denominated. And I think it might be the case with stablecoins that what actually happens is rather than kind of overthrowing the dollar, it actually enables people outside the US to access the dollar in ways they couldn't previously. I think this is the biggest thing that's actually underappreciated by people here in America, which is for outsiders. Lots of currencies are not a great thing to hold savings in, or not a great thing to transact in. I don't want to name names and single any poor currency out, but there are many currencies where when you go to give them to your counterparty, they look at you funny and ask, what is that?
Yeah. Cole's Cash comes to mind. That's,
And there's a lot of currencies that have lost 75% of their value, in the last 5 years. And so providing the ability for people outside the US to hold dollars is, I think, going to be a big deal. And so anyway, I think there's kind of an irony in crypto where, one of the most important and consequential things it may end up enabling is the dollar's greater success.
You are a co-founder of the ARC Institute. You mentioned it a moment ago. You also mentioned the persistent problem of the common cold. Do you think there is something that can be done about the common cold? And are you going to work on it?
We have a big announcement tonight. No,
that would be so dope.
Yes, that mist on the way in was actually a vaccine. No. Humanity has. This was only a penny that dropped for me a couple of years ago. Humanity has never cured a complex disease. And what I mean by that is, there are some genes that are, there's some diseases, infectious diseases, the cold, COVID, what have you. Then we have monogenic diseases, Huntington's, things that are the product of some specific genetic abnormality. But then you have all these diseases that are some combination of the environment and what you do with your life and genetic risk factors you might have. So this is most cancers, most cardiovascular disease, most neurodegenerative disease, most autoimmune disease, and so forth. Anyway, we've never cured one of these. It's too complicated because figuring out how the genes and the environment and the durations that elapse and so forth, it's incorrigible. So we set up ARC Institute to try to, again, time will tell, whether they're actually able to make any progress here. But the idea was, hey, can we try a different strategy for going after these complex diseases? And one of the things that has been, a real boost for us over the last 2 years is actually AI, where I think the LLMs, as we interact with them, they're obviously wonderful and enable all sorts of productivity enhancements and so forth. But there's another language, DNA, the language of life, and kind of hitherto we haven't really, it's billions of base pairs, and we can't at a human level understand what's going on there. It's kind of beyond what any individual can comprehend. And what we've seen with some early work, and we published our first virtual cell model yesterday, actually by coincidence.
Yeah, tell us about that. What is a virtual cell?
So why haven't we cured cancer or any complex disease? On some level, the problem is that experiments in biology are slow and expensive. Like, you're dealing with actual physical cells, and you have to wait for them to grow. And so if you have some hypothesis or some idea, you do things to the cells, and then you wait 3 months, you wait 6 months, you have to purchase the reagents, the ingredients, they're expensive, the supply chains span multiple countries. So just it's laborious. So in software and engineering, you have an idea, you write a quick command to the command line, and 10 milliseconds later you have your response. In biology, sort of that REPL takes months to elapse. And so the idea behind a virtual cell, and this is not, others have had this idea, this is not ARC's idea, the kind of core idea is if you actually had a useful, accurate way to perform kind of computational experiments where you try the thing that in accordance with your hypothesis, in silico, as the biologists say, because they always like to make things complicated and fancy. But really, you just like computationally do your thing. Then again, if that was actually accurate, it would be an enormous accelerant to biology. So anyway, that's the kind of idea. We haven't until recently. Is this too much biology?
No, we like it.
Okay, all right.
You guys like biology?
In the last couple of years, we've got sort of technologies in 3 different domains that are really important. So with a computer is composed of the ability to read, to think, to compute, whatever, and then to write. That's the core 3 operations. In biology, in the last just couple years, we've got the ability to sequence individual cells, to figure out what's going on in just like one cell, which is a big deal. We've gotten deep neural networks and transformers and all that stuff, so we can kind of think over data of very significant complexity. And then we've had huge advances in functional genomics and CRISPR and the ability to make individual edits to individual cells. And so those are all big breakthroughs in their own right. But when you put them together, there's kind of this shimmering potential promise that, hey, maybe you could, for the first time, enable this, these accurate computational predictions very quickly, very cheaply. And again, if that worked, it would be a huge deal in biology.
Very cool. Very cool.
No.
Yeah.
You guys don't tap if it works.
You are a voracious reader. What is your case for reading the whole book instead of an AI summary? Or is that not a case you would make?
Gosh, I think reading the AI summary I think it can be useful. I think it has a powerfully inoculating effect. I think TV is a waste. Like long-form TV, lots of episodes, TV is a waste of time. But
we told you there would be hot takes tonight.
but it's very tempting, right? So like you watch an episode and like, oh geez, I really want to know what happens here. And so I discovered a couple of years ago, obviously, the solution is you immediately go to Wikipedia and read the entire summary of the season, and you're cured of the desire to watch any more episodes. I think there is a therapeutic benefit to AI summaries.
That is the most San Francisco thing I've ever heard.
But
I love it.
But it's one does not derive any deep pleasure or betterment from it. So I've never read an AI book summary.
Yeah.
All right, Patrick, can we do some lightning round questions?
Okay.
What age will the
Can I,
media?
when do I get to ask for the Stripe feedback?
Oh, well,
Casey, you're a Stripe customer.
I am a Stripe customer. Actually, very quickly, you're doing automated disputes now?
Yes.
Very excited to try this.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everything else is working well?
Everything's also working great.
Okay,
Everything's
great.
Yeah.
All right, lightning round questions. What age will the median child born in 2025 in the U.S. live to be?
So 25 today?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 95.
Oh, great. What is one thing you wish an agent could do, an AI agent could do for you reliably that it can't quite yet?
Reason over the scientific literature. It gets tripped up in the paywalls.
Well, and we know how.
And I think, like, why hasn't anyone in that space done anything about it?
Yeah.
We love paywalls in this house. Patrick, what trait do you hire for?
Imagine if you had critters paying at them, on behalf of unsuspecting people.
Yeah, I love that.
That sounds
That's a
beautiful.
business model for the media.
Yeah.
I'm excited to present the critter strategy at the next meeting. What trait do you hire for that most companies undervalue?
For Stripe, we really care about long-term thinking. Infrastructure, with the lightning round, but infrastructure can't happen overnight. We've been working on it for 15 years. We still feel like we're just starting. And so if somebody, our product and the super successful ones still take a decade to fully play out. And so I like the analogy that there's kind of technology companies building cars and roads, and we need cars, and cars are super cool and beautiful and all the things, but someone's got to build the roads, and Stripe looks for the kind of people who are predisposed to work on roads.
Is there a book you read recently that made you say, everyone I know needs to read this? Or even not that recently?
I'll give you two. The Dream Machine is, hands up here who feels like they really have a good understanding of the history of the internet.
Shame on you.
Well, it's funny. Alan Kay once commented that computer science is a pop culture. He thought that we were kind of recapitulating the same ideas in kind of blissful ignorance of our history. And I think there is something kind of funny where we as technologists were not as into and fascinated by, I think, our own history as people are in other domains. And so the Dream Machine is the best history of the internet and the kind of thinking around it and the motivations around it. And it's also it's published by Stripe Press. So and then the one I read reasonably recently that kind of blew my mind was The Demon Under the Microscope, which was you all know that penicillin was the first antibiotic, except it wasn't. There was one before it. It changed the world. The story behind its invention is very interesting. So those are my two.
Great. Patrick Collison, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, my goodness. If I ever feel smart, I try to just talk to Patrick Collison, and it really brings me down a peg.
Yeah, he talks as fast as us. It's amazing. You should have a podcast.
Well, Kevin, this is actually very exciting. It's something that I think the audience has been waiting for some time now, which is the second costume change of the show.
Yes, we're gonna go change costumes. We'll be back in a few minutes. But while we're backstage, we have a short video to show you. On our show, we like to celebrate new technologies coming into the world, being born, taking their existence. But from time to time, technologies do also meet their end. So tonight, we'd like to present you with the hard fork in Memoriam.
Oh, it was so sad. That was
So sad.
What?
You were expecting? Well, Casey, we're wearing what I would call robot pants.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, and why are we wearing these robot pants?
We are wearing these robot pants because it gives us a great excuse to talk to Kathryn Zealand.
Yeah, so Kathryn Zealand is the founder and CEO of Skip. They're the company that makes these pants. The company spun out of X, the Google experimental research division, not the social media network owned by Elon Musk, in 2023. And since then, she's been working on this exoskeleton movewear, like these pants, which have been called e-bikes for walking. Let's bring on Kathryn Zealand from Skip.
Kathryn! Thank you, Kathryn.
You guys didn't see, but backstage, we just did the best quick change in theater history.
I just took my pants off in front of Patrick Collison. So, Kathryn, in a few words, tell us who your products are for and what problem you're hoping to solve.
So I'm sure I'm not the only one here who's got a loved one that struggled with movement, or maybe you've got knee pain or had an injury. And so at Skip, what we want to do long term is help anyone achieve whatever they want to do, regardless of any kind of mobility impairment. This is our first product. This is the Mogo. And this is actually aimed at people who want to go hiking. But often, they may be struggling a little bit either with knee pain or with a kind of reduced mobility. So an e-bike was a really great analogy. It just kind of particularly helps with the inclines, steep hills and stairs, things like that. But then eventually will help, hopefully, everyone.
So tell us, what is in these pants? Folks who may be sitting a little further back may not be able to see, but in addition to these pants, which I believe you partnered with Arc'teryx to make these pants, there's also some, pretty heavy machinery on here. So what is this stuff doing?
Yeah, so the real magic is kind of these lightweight motors. Here's one I prepared earlier. And really, it's only in the last decade or so that robotics has gotten efficient enough, affordable enough, light enough. You can have something this small that can do up to maybe 40% of like a healthy person's muscle forces. And so there's a motor that's kind of providing physical oomph. And then built into the pant, those near the front can maybe see this sort of a little bit of a cuff situation to help transfer that force to the body. Yeah.
And I know that one of the things that these pants can do is help you stand up, which you were sort of explaining to me is so helpful for folks who are older and need some help with that. And I thought, I need that help now. So I think your market may actually be larger than you first suspected.
Yeah, and I'm actually having a similar problem because I don't know if you noticed, but I'm quite pregnant. And
I wasn't going to say anything.
Thank you. It's 8 months. Kathryn joined us at 8 months pregnant, so please do give her a round of applause.
And all of a sudden, yes, I also need help walking upstairs and standing up out of chairs.
Now, do you envision a world where lots of people are wearing kind of exoskeleton-type movewear, or do you think this will primarily be for people who have mobility issues?
I think a bit of both. So I think if you're truly able-bodied, a product like this is probably just not worth your time necessarily. But there's a huge range of people who might be recovering from an injury. They might be pregnant. They might have a joint pain. They might have had a surgery. And so I think probably most people at some point in their life will use one of these products. And we also do R&D in things like Parkinson's disease and people who have more severe issues as well. But for sure, it's much broader than the first set of products that you're seeing coming on now.
As this technology develops and you're able to shrink it down, do you see a world where more able-bodied people might just choose to wear it because they like feeling a little bionic when they walk around town?
I was going to say, are you trying to dunk a basketball? Is that where you're headed?
I've been trying since 1992.
For sure, yes. But I would say, if you just want to make your exercise harder, because this is something that some people ask, like, oh, can I get resistance mode? You could also try ankle weights. I think they're going to make a comeback. Yeah.
Now, exoskeletons are a staple of science fiction. I remember watching movies as a kid that had exoskeletons, and lots of other stuff in those movies has become commonplace, but not exoskeletons and this kind of hardware. So why is this taking longer than other types of futuristic technology?
I think there's two reasons. One is that like hardware is hard, and people are really sensitive to what's on their body, right? So I mean, you're wearing like an early version of the prototype, and it's probably not super comfortable. You know, the fit's not always perfect, and you might tolerate like an uglier and imperfect robot if it's just kind of in a factory, but when you've got to wear something, it's important that it's comfortable, that it fits really well, that it looks good. So the bar is really high for anything that's worn. I think the second reason is actually around AI. And so, you know, historically, exoskeletons and all robotics do very repetitive tasks, right? Like in a warehouse, doing lifting was one of the first places you saw exoskeletons actually become used because it's the same task again and again. But when you think about maybe an older adult who wants to like move about their community, they're doing lots of different movements and they're moving in weird ways. And I'm like a fidgeter. So, you know, in one of our early prototypes, I was sitting at a very important meeting with my boss, and I was tapping my foot because I was a bit nervous. And all of a sudden, it thought I was trying to stand up. And it turns on, and it like throws my leg up, and the whole table goes like, and everyone's water spills, and there's chaos.
That was actually the plot of Megan 2.0. That happened there.
Okay, well, so we've talked a bit about this product. Anything else we should know about it before we see what it can do?
You signed the disclaimer, right, backstage?
No.
Yeah.
No, we're just going to wing it.
Excellent.
So Leah, let's stand up and maybe take us through
So start
the demo here.
by turning it on even while you're sitting if you want. There's a little button at the back here. Press and release, and the LEDs should change
Mine
color.
is already blue. Does that mean it's on?
No, that means it's
Yeah.
now you're.
Whoa, hello.
And so now you can try standing up.
Yep.
And sitting back down is like a very common movement.
Okay, I feel like I'm, yeah, this is giving Mecca. Yeah, I feel like.
Yeah, you can do some squats.
It actually is helping me stand up. And
Yeah.
that's awesome.
No, this is great. I feel, yeah, like, you know when you have like a spotter at the gym?
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't know. It's like that feeling when you're just getting a little boost. Yeah.
Exactly. But the problem is you both strike me as quite fit, healthy people.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, we're always hearing that.
Exactly. So we were trying to think like, what's a way that we could make this, you know, a little bit more challenging for you,
Yeah.
so you really can appreciate the technology. So have you noticed that there's a Stairmaster behind
The
you?
Stairmaster!
I did. Can I try?
Yeah.
With my, okay, please clap.
Yeah.
Wow, wow, we're really doing it. Okay, let's put the stairs on. Okay.
So, you know, like about a level 3 or 4.
Okay, I'm
you
at
don't-
5. I like to
Okay.
live on the edge.
Great.
Okay, it's good. It's like, I feel like what I'm doing is not climbing stairs. It's like climbing stairs adjacent. It's sort of like the physical equivalent of vibe coding. I'm vibe walking.
Right.
Okay.
And one problem we have is like your brain is amazingly good at getting used to a new feeling. And so sometimes people, they're not even sure how much it's helping. So if you want, we could turn it off and then you might see the difference.
Oh, you're gonna remotely disable it?
Yeah, please.
I'm
God.
just saying we can if
No,
you
do
want.
it. I want to experience this on my own 2 feet.
All right, we're going to turn you off in 3, 2, 1, off.
Oh yeah, that's much harder. I don't like that. Can you turn it back on?
You want it back on?
Yes. This is how you get your customers. They can't go back.
This is genuinely how
I've
we
heard
often
of the
get
hedonic
customers.
treadmill, but this is ridiculous.
Okay, you're back on now.
Okay.
Is that a bit easier?
That's good. That's good. Thank you.
I mean, I think that was all right, you know. I don't know that it could be done better.
Oh, would you like to try?
Would it be okay if I tried?
I think so, but do you need some music?
It would, honestly, Maestro, if you could cue something up, it might sort of help me get going a little bit.
Oh, backwards. Yeah, you're nailing it.
Amazing. That was great. I think when I kicked my legs up, the Stairmaster stopped because it was afraid for me.
Yeah, but it's always a good sign when the worst part of our demo that goes wrong is the Stairmaster, so that's a win.
Absolutely.
That was incredible. Now, Kathryn, tell people where they can find out more about these pants if they're interested.
Yeah, so we're Skip, so skipwithjoy.com. I presume that'll be in the show notes. And you can pre-order them now. We'll be shipping next year. And we also do like rentals and experiences, especially for folk who like really want to achieve like a dream hike, but they're not able to at the moment. We're trying to help them do that and get feedback.
And how much for the pants?
A bit like an e-bike, so $5,000.
All right, well, Kathryn, thank you so much for joining us. We really had a great time.
Of course.
Thank you.
This was so fun.
you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm sweating.
We're doing great. All right. Well, Kevin, as we say at the end of so many podcast segments, it's time to get out of these pants.
We will be back in just a few minutes. In the meantime, please welcome back to the stage Brass Animals. How good are those guys?
How about the brass animals?
Wow. That's now 2 tech CEOs who have seen me in my underwear.
When we rehearsed this, it just was not clear we would be taking our pants off in front of most of the guests.
Yes.
Well,
That's what they call the hard fork bonus.
We're about halfway through the show. I thought I would just kind of check in. You guys have a good time? Okay. We're having a lot of fun.
Oh boy.
Wait, really? There's no way. Okay, great.
You want us to go back?
Well.
No, come on out.
Come on out.
Yeah.
Hey, Sam. Hi, Brad.
Hey.
Wow.
Good to see you.
I love it. We're doing it live today, family.
You guys are learning a very important thing about our show, which is that it's edited.
Yeah. Kevin, do you have maybe one more thing you want to say before we get into the interview?
Yes. So we're here with Sam Altman and Brad Lightcap from OpenAI.
Do your thing.
You can check your email or whatever. Well, what we were gonna do is tee up your appearance a little bit by just giving a little lay of the land of what's been going on at OpenAI, which is a very busy company. Casey and I have been.
This is more fun that we're out here for this, then.
Yeah. No, jump in. You guys can be Statler and Waldorf over there.
I had a list of headlines from the past couple of weeks, and if there's anything that just makes you want to roll your eyes, you can roll your eyes. Okay. So, Are you
going to talk about where you sue us because you don't like user privacy?
Okay. Woo! The last thing Sam said to me before he came on stage was, "I don't strike
I
first."
did say that. That's true. Well, you teed it up with the headlines.
Yeah. Do you want to say something, Kevin, about the New York Times?
Oh, yes. We should also give our disclosures, which is that we are just journalists. We are not involved in the lawsuit. I don't know. We don't represent the company's views on the matter.
What do you think of the company's views?
What do I think of the company's views? Are you trying to get me fired, Sam?
No, I just want to know.
Kevin needs this job, Sam.
I don't have any other skills.
It seems like you got a podcast. I mean, a lot of things.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, okay, great. So, you said that.
I'm going to just pretend I didn't hear that.
You're pro the lawsuit.
What's that?
You're pro the lawsuit.
I think people should read the relevant filings and make up their own mind.
Yes, democracy! Democracy! We love it. We love it. We love it.
And what about your mind?
Well, it feels like you have something you want to say about the lawsuit.
Well, I do think I like user privacy. I don't think.
You want to explain what you're talking about
here? What do you mean?
Oh. Well, you guys are suing us. And
I'm an independent contractor. I write a newsletter. It's called Platformer.
Yeah, don't drag him into this.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's happening is your employer is, or I don't know what you call it for an independent contractor. The New York Times. Let's just say the New York Times.
Yeah.
One of the great institutions, truly, for a long time, is taking a position that we should have to preserve our users' logs, even if they're chatting in private mode, even if they've asked us to delete them. And, the lawsuit we're happy to fight out, but that thing we think that privacy in AI is just this extremely important concept to get right for the future, and we care a lot about the precedent. Still love you guys, still love the New York Times, but that one we feel strongly about.
Well, thank you for your views, and I'll just say it must be really hard when someone does something with your data that you don't really want them to. I don't know what that's like personally, but maybe someone else does. Okay, let's get started with the questions.
That's all right.
I was recently told by a guest on stage that the singularity would be gentle. So I just want to point that out. Yeah. All right.
Casey, read your headlines.
Speaking of, do we still want the headline? Let's go into the question. These people know what's been happening with OpenAI.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to give a sense of the just sheer volume of stuff you all are doing. We've been covering tech for a long time. I don't think either of us have ever seen a company that makes this much news this regularly on this many areas. I mean, you've got hardware stuff going on with Johnny Ive. You've got, obviously, ChatGPT continues to grow. You're doing this defense contract, this $200 million defense contract, a deal with Mattel to make toys.
I think you were the first company to sign a deal with Mattel and the military in the same week.
I like that.
Stargate, your big data center project. Your attempted conversion to a for-profit company. So there's just a lot going on in your worlds. Casey?
Well, but we wanted to start with something, I don't know, that I thought you might have fun talking about, which is that rascal Mark Zuckerberg keeps coming after your employees. And I'm sure this is happening to you guys on some level all of the time, but I wondered if there's been any like particularly funny or crazy moment over the past few weeks as they've really stepped this up.
Any that you think have been particularly funny?
Many.
Many? Sure.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't slept in 4 years, so it's like, at this point, nothing phases me.
One of the strangest things of the job is the amount of things that can go wrong by like 11 o'clock on a Monday morning. It's just an astonishing diversity of stuff. And so it's like, okay, Zuckerberg is doing some new insane thing. What's next?
Yeah.
Like,
Okay, I want to gossip for just 1 minute more.
Yeah.
Do you
only
think,
one?
Do you think Mark
We're here
Zucker-
for a lot of that.
We can do more gossip. Do you think Mark Zuckerberg actually believes in superintelligence, or do you just think he's saying that as a recruiting tactic?
I think he believes he's super intelligent.
Lightcap off the ropes!
Very good. All right, but it sounds like your confidence has not been shaken by the recent raid on your employees.
We're feeling good.
Yeah. All right. All right. So you recently wrote this essay I just mentioned, The Gentle Singularity, and you wrote, "We're past the event horizon. The takeoff has started." And people I think read that and thought, do these guys like have a super intelligence that they're keeping it in the basement? I assume that that's not true, but tell us a little bit about why you wrote that essay and when, in your mind, we hit this point of no return.
We don't have a superintelligence in the basement, but we have shipped a model that any of you can use, and I hope any of you do, that is quite smart relative to what you might have expected 5 years ago, where the world would be with AI. And we have all adjusted to this. We've all just sort of said, oh, this is the new world. We have like PhD level intelligence in our pocket, and we can use it. We can talk to it all day. We can do all the stuff for us. But it is kind of remarkable that this has happened, and this is the world now. And when you are like living through moving history, you adapt so quickly that I think it's hard to get the perspective of like, man, 5 years ago, most of the experts made fun of anyone who said AGI might be even a plausible thing to work towards, and now here we are with this thing that has come quite a long way that we can use in all these ways. And we used to try to just say like, hey, this AGI thing is coming, it might be a really big deal, it might be really important, you all should pay attention. No one cared. And we shipped the product, and then people cared. And a thing we've learned again and again is, talking about it doesn't seem to break through, but if people can use it and feel it and, see where it's good and where it's bad and integrate it with their lives, then they do. And so now we see many years ahead of us of extreme progress that we feel is like pretty much on lock, and models that will get to the point where they are capable of doing meaningful science, meaningful AI research. And we continue to feel a responsibility to tell the world about that. Most people won't listen. Maybe some more people will listen this time. But we'll ship products that expose these higher levels of intelligence that we'll build. And that is how I think people will really get their hands around what's happening.
Now, Brad, it's your job to manage the business of OpenAI. What does being past the event horizon towards superintelligence mean for OpenAI as a company? I imagine it makes lots of different kinds of decisions different, but like, how do you plan for a world like the one that Sam is describing as a person who runs a business?
Yeah, it's the fun part of what we do. We debate this internally a lot. We will kind of wake up one day with this incredibly powerful thing, and will the world be different that day? And I think what we've all kind of agreed now is it probably won't. Kind of to Sam's point, I think like these things really have to be kind of integrated into people's lives. They have to be felt, and that change is more gradual. And so we work really closely with companies and as much as we do with users to figure out what that process will look like. I do think businesses will look very different in the future. So my kind of personal metric for what kind of business in the superintelligence age means is you've got one person who has a lot of agency and a lot of willpower, who who has the capacity to start a company that can do billions of dollars in revenue. And it's hard to imagine now. Like, you think, okay, yeah, I need salespeople, and I need product people, and engineers, and accountants, and so on. But all of that stuff now can kind of just be managed, right? It can be kind of built into the system, and that just gives incredible agency to individual people.
So I want to get into the nitty-gritty of building this future. Right now, the agents that you all have built for coding are really extremely good. People can build a lot of amazing stuff with them. Outside that domain, we've seen less progress. Talk to me about what's going to happen the next year that makes you feel like you can start knocking off one or more of these other domains.
Well, first of all, coding's pretty general purpose. If you can write code, you can do a system that can write code, just like a person that can write code, can make a lot of other things happen. But we are beginning to see scientists be much more productive with this. We're seeing companies like really change a lot of their workflows. The thing, though, that I am excited for, most of the way people use AI today is sort of like send a request, get a response. You send ChatGPT a request, it might think for a second, it might not, it sends you something back. You are in one of those like vibe coding things and you do something and you get something back. I think I'm very excited for a world where each of us has a copy of O3 or many copies of O3 that are just constantly running, constantly trying to like say, oh, I see this happening, now this, and I'm reading Slack and I'm reading email and I see this and this and this, and you asked about this yesterday, here's a new idea. And starts to just, we have this like team of agents, assistants, companions, whatever you want to call them, that are doing stuff in the background all of the time. And that I think will really transform what people can do and how we work, and kind of maybe to some extent how we just sort of like live our lives.
So I use O3 all the time. It is helpful to me as a journalist. It can fact check stuff for me. It can edit stuff for me. When is the moment when like it just kind of knows what I do, and in the morning it actually just kind of starts doing that stuff without me telling it?
Well, that's kind of what I'm talking about, except I don't think it should be without you telling it. But I would love, if I woke up every morning and there was, a drafted response to every email that had come in overnight, and I could click and I could say, I want to send this one, I want to edit this one, I want to send that one. If I could open ChatGPT and say, hey, here was the stuff you were working on yesterday that you didn't finish on your to-do list. Here's my attempts at that. Do you want me to take this action, that one? And by the way, here are these other things that happened overnight in, with a customer or in the world or whatever. And, here's a set of stuff I could do for you. And I have like all of this ready to go. And I could just sort of go through and say like, okay, do that, don't do that. Here's what should have been different here. That I'm very excited about. But I don't want to like go to sleep and have O3 just start taking actions for me.
All right. I use O3 a lot too, and I find it very useful. The thing I will say is that it lies. It like more than previous models, I feel like it is a crafty, shifty assistant that will just once in a while make stuff up. And actually, it seems like how the hallucination rates on these newer models are staying about the same, or maybe even getting worse. So do you have a theory on why that might be?
I think it did get a little bit worse from O1 to O3, and we'll make it much better in the next version. I think we're earlier in learning how to align reasoning models and also like how people are using them in different ways, but I think we've now learned a lot, and I would suspect you'll be very happy with the next generation there.
So you made your largest acquisition to date this year with Johnny Ives I/O. The first crop of AI hardware that we've seen has not been particularly successful. Brad and Sam, what do you guys feel like you're seeing that makes you feel like you can do something different here?
Well, every time you kind of re-platform technology, there tends to be kind of a corresponding set of things that get built that change how we interface with that technology. So I think the question here is that going to happen again? All of a sudden, right, like you have, you kind of miniaturize the PC and you have the mobile phone. The PC itself was a miniaturization of the mainframe and so on and so forth. I think this one has a different direction. I think this one is really going to be about this very kind of aware, very contextual, almost companion-like system that is going to be less about kind of like a dependency on a screen. I think there's a place for a screen in that world, but it's going to be really about an awareness of kind of the ambient environment. What's going on? Sam mentioned the kind of trivial example of like something that is looking at your email. You can build something that's really bad that does that today, but to get to the version of that that's like transcendently good, there's a ton of context and a ton of awareness that you have to have of like what each situational thing is that helps you craft exactly the right response. And imagine that now in kind of any arbitrary situation and wanting to have that with you all the time. And so I think that's a very compelling direction for this type of hardware.
It sounds a lot like Alexa. Is it going to feel a lot different than Alexa?
Don't you just want to wait and be surprised and get some joy? Like, it's been a long time since the world has gotten a fundamentally new kind of computer. Like, let us try.
Okay.
If it's Alexa, we're going to be really mad. I'm just saying that right now.
So will I.
And these people will remember this. Sam?
No, I think we can do. I think we have a chance to do something truly great, but hardware is really hard and it takes a while. And I've always wanted to try to do a new kind of computer, but that hasn't worked most of the time. So we're like really going to take our time and try to get it right.
Sam, a few years ago, you described your relationship with Microsoft and its CEO, Satya Nadella, as, quote, the best bromance in tech. The bromance has been feeling a little wobbly recently. OpenAI needs Microsoft's blessing for this for-profit conversion, and Microsoft is reportedly peeved at you about a bunch of things, including the terms of a planned acquisition. Last week, the Wall Street Journal reported that things had gotten so tense that OpenAI executives were considering reporting Microsoft to the government for anti-competitive behavior.
Do you believe that? When you read those things and say, like, do you think...
Are you saying it's not
true? What I
true?
always think when I read that? I hope I get to ask Sam Altman about it.
So what is going on, and are you caught in a bad bromance?
I had a super nice call with Satya yesterday about many topics, including our hopefully very long and productive future working together. And obviously, in any deep partnership, there are points of tension, and we've certainly had those. But on the whole, it's been like really wonderfully good for both companies. We're both ambitious companies, so we do find some flashpoints. But I would expect that it is something that we find like deep value in for both sides for a very long time to come. And in a world where I do read these articles sometimes, like OpenAI and Microsoft about to collapse, and this, that, and then like my calls are like, how do we figure out what the next decade together looks like? And it doesn't. Again, not to pretend like there's no tension, there is, but there's like so much good stuff there, and I think there's like such a long horizon.
That's what we in the business call a non-denial denial.
I don't know.
Just kidding.
Let's move into some policy stuff. You've talked to President Trump. What does he think about AI? What are those conversations like? That was not intended to be a laugh line.
You want to take it first?
Yeah.
I'll do it. No, that's fine. That was not intended to be a laugh line either.
Yeah.
I think he really gets it. I think he gets the technology. I couldn't say that about all presidents. I think he really understands the importance of leadership in this technology, the potential for economic transformation, the sort of geopolitical importance, the need to build out a lot of infrastructure. They're like very productive conversations, and he has done stuff that has really helped the whole industry. It is easier to permit data centers and new energy to run those data centers than it has, I think, ever been before. And that could have gone the other way.
Dario Amodei of Anthropic recently said that he thinks 50% of entry-level white-collar jobs could disappear due to AI in the next 1 to 5 years. Do you agree?
No, I don't.
No.
Why not, Brad?
We have no evidence of this, and Dario's a scientist, and I would hope he takes like an evidence-based approach to these types of things. But like we work with every business under the sun. We look at the problem and an opportunity of deploying AI into every company on Earth. We have yet to see any evidence that people are kind of wholesale replacing entry-level jobs. I think that there is going to be some sort of change in the job market. I think it's inevitable. I think every time you get a platform shift, you get a change in the job market. I mean, in 1900, 40% of people worked in agriculture. It's 2% today. Microsoft Excel has probably been the greatest job displacer of the 20th century. And if we knew a priori that Microsoft Excel was coming, and everyone was kind of like fretting about it, I think in retrospect we would have thought that was dumb. But so I think like there will be change, of course. But I think like there's no evidence of it today, and B, I think like we will manage through it. We have a lot of empathy for the problem. I think like we work with businesses every day to try and enable people to be able to use the tools at the level of like the 20-year-olds that come into companies and use them with a level of fluency that far transcends anyone else at those organizations. But we see it as our mission to make sure that people know how to use these tools and to drive people forward.
You know, I have to say, we've had some listeners write into the show and say, hey, I'm a junior coder. I just got laid off. I'm not feeling really good about my prospects here. So that's like, a pretty small sliver of the economy. But, I hear you talk about what you want to do with O3. I think if it gets as good as you're saying, it's not just going to be the junior coders who are going to be affected by that, right? So I guess what I'm saying is I feel like I'm seeing like slivers of it now, and I'm curious what you make of those.
I do think there will be areas where some jobs go away, or maybe there will be some whole categories of jobs that go away, and any job that goes away, even if it's like good for society and the economy as a whole, is painful, very painful, extremely painful in that moment. And so I do totally get not just the anxiety, but that there is going to be real pain here in many cases. In many more cases, though, I think we will find that the world is significantly underemployed. The world wants way more code than can get written right now. I think we are already seeing companies who said, oh, I'm going to need less coders, to now saying, paradoxically, I need more coders. They're going to work differently, but I'm just going to make 100 times as much code, 100 times as much product, with 10 times as much people, and we'll still make 30 times as much money, even if the price comes down. I think all of human history suggests that if you give people better tools, if technology keeps going, although there are always people who say, we're going to be working 3 hours a day and sitting on the beach and we're going to have run out of things to do. Like, human demand seems limitless. Our ability to imagine new things to do for each other seems limitless. We always seem to want more stuff, to play, increasingly silly status games. Our jobs would not have seemed like real jobs to people in the not very distant past. Like, they'd be like, you're sitting around like talking on stage and you're trying to like make a piece of software and you're trying to like do a podcast and you're trying to make people laugh. Like, that's great, but that's like play. That's not a job. You have plenty of food to eat. You have all this stuff to do. You have this unimaginable luxury. And because I think human imagination and desire, demand, whatever you want to call it, is limitless, we will find incredible new things to do. Society will get way richer. I think generally as society gets richer, unemployment goes down, not up, and I'd expect to keep seeing that, even though people, I think, don't talk about that very much. And the entry-level people, I think, will be the people that do the best here. They're the most fluent with the tools. They're the most able to think of things in very new ways. They have this sort of largest canvas. So there's going to be real downside here. There's going to be real negative impact. And again, like any single job lost really matters to that person. And the hard part about this is I think it will happen faster than previous technological changes, but I think the new jobs will be better and people will have better stuff. And the kind of like take that half the jobs are going to be gone in a year or 2 years or 5 years or whatever, I think that's not how society really works. Even if the technology were ready for that, the inertia of society, which will be helpful in this case, is like, there's a lot of mass there.
The thing we actually see empirically, if we want to talk about kind of what we observe, is somewhat what Sam's describing. It's actually there's a class of worker that I think is more tenured, is more oriented toward a routine and a certain way of doing things in a certain role, that is not actually sophisticated in use of these tools. They're not adopting them. They tend to think that it's not worth their time or whatever it may be, and I think there's a lot of fear there. And a lot of what's driving that fear are like 20-somethings that are actually coming into the workforce who have been using these tools for years and years and who've mastered them in a way that like they kind of look at these other jobs and they're like, why would you waste your time doing that thing? I can do that much faster. And so the thing that companies actually worry about deeply is not the entry-level job. It's really the job of the person that has been at the company for 30 years, who's done something in a very kind of rote and routine way, where there's an urge on the side of management of wanting to really kind of modernize the tool set. And what do you do with that, right? And that's I think, actually the kind of addressable problem for us.
Sam, 2 years ago, you testified to Congress about the need for more AI regulation. More recently, you went back to Washington and testified again that you supported a light touch regulatory regime. And earlier this year, you said you supported a federal preemption on state-level AI regulations, a version of which is now part of the Republican budget bill. What changed? Did you see the regulations that people were writing and thought, we wanted regulation, but not like that?
No, I still think we need some regulation, but I would say I think like a patchwork across the states would probably be a real mess and very difficult to offer services under. And I also think that I have become more, I don't know if jaded's quite the right word, but something in that direction about the ability of policymakers to grapple with the speed of technology. And I worry that if people write, if we kick off like a 3-year process to write something that's like very detailed and covers a lot of cases, the technology will just move very quickly. On the other hand, as these systems get quite powerful, I think we clearly need something. And I think something around the sort of like the really risky capabilities, and ideally something that can sort of be quite adaptive and not like a law that survives 100 years and sort of says, here's exactly the things you can do and not do, would be good. But yeah, it's like impossible for me to imagine a world where society doesn't decide we need some framework here.
Earlier this year, you adjusted GPT-4o after it inadvertently became more sycophantic than you intended. Since then, we've read more stories about how ChatGPT and other chatbots can destabilize people by sending them down conspiratorial rabbit holes, making them feel like they're having mystical experiences. Can that be stopped? Do you want it to stop?
Of course we want it to stop. We do a lot of things to try to mitigate that. If people are having like a crisis, which they talk to ChatGPT about, we try to suggest that they get help from a professional, that they talk to their family. If conversations are going down a sort of rabbit hole in this direction, we try to cut them off or suggest to the user to, maybe think about something differently. But I think the broader topic of mental health and the way that interacts with over-reliance on AI models is something we're trying to take extremely seriously and rapidly. We don't want to like slide into the mistakes that I think previous generation of tech companies made by not reacting quickly enough as a new thing sort of like had a psychological interaction.
Have you ever thought about just like literally putting a warning on that says, this is ChatGPT, you are not talking to God, you are not having a religious experience?
The model will tell you things like that, and then users will write us and say like, you modified this, and they change their like custom instructions. But yes, there need to be a lot of warnings like that. However, to the users that are in a fragile enough mental place that are like on the edge of a psychotic break, we haven't yet figured out how a warning gets through there.
We also have to be careful because there are an incredible number of use cases that I think probably by sheer volume outweigh some of the use cases you're describing, where people are really relying on these systems for pretty critical parts of their life. These are things like almost kind of borderline therapeutic, or I get stories of people who have rehabilitated marriages, have rehabilitated relationships with estranged loved ones, things like that, where it's highly net positive, and there's not a dependency, but it's the first time in their life that they've had something that they feel like they can confide in, and it doesn't cost them $1,000 an hour, right? And I was surfing in Costa Rica the other day, and someone paddled up to me and was chatting with him, a local Costa Rican guy, and he's like, "Where do you work?" I said, "OpenAI." He's like, "Oh, you make ChatGPT," and he started crying. He was like, "ChatGPT saved my marriage. I didn't know how to talk to my wife." And it gave me tips to talk to my wife, and I've learned that, and we're on a much better path, and it sounds like a dumb and like stupid story, but like it's not. I was there.
That's great. We're back to even because a chatbot tried to break up my marriage.
Well, not our chatbot though.
Well, it was your chatbot, but it was inside Bing, so we'll spread the blame around there. Now, Sam, you just had a kid. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you think over the course of their lifetime, your kid will have more human friends or more AI friends?
More human friends, but AI will be, if not a friend, at least an important kind of companion of some sort.
Is that okay with you? Like, would you, if your kid at one point when they're a little older came home and said, I've got an AI friend, how would that make you feel?
If my kid felt like that was like replacing human friends, I would have concerns about that, at least with what, again, there are edge cases. You know, any person who talks to hundreds of millions of people a day is going to meet a lot of edge cases. And in the sense ChatGPT is talking to hundreds of millions of people a day, there are going to be some real edge cases in there. But most people, much more than I was concerned, seem to really understand the difference between talking to a person and talking to ChatGPT. And I still do have a lot of concerns about the impact on mental health and the social impacts from the deep relationships that people are going to have with AI. But I think it, at least so far, it has surprised me on the upside of how much people really differentiate between, like, that's an AI and I talk to an AI in some way and I get something out of it, and that's a friend and I talk to a friend, a person in this other way, and get a very different thing out of that.
All right, here's something I've always wanted to ask you. AI Twitter is still really active, even though Twitter doesn't exist anymore. You actively post there, share a lot of news there, and that's extremely helpful and good for Elon Musk, a man who is trying to destroy your company. Have you ever thought of just moving your posts somewhere else?
Where should I move them?
Well, you could create your own social app.
Don't go to Blue Sky. They don't like AI there.
Well,
They're not going to be nice to you there.
It's a rough neighborhood. Maybe as a last thing, we wanted to know this too. We'd invite you both to answer this. Is there any part of your life that you feel like, I want to wall this off from AI a little bit? It's fun to talk about AI. We think it's all very useful. We're excited to keep building it. But this particular thing, we're going analog.
I gotta think about that one.
Surfing, presumably. Although maybe you ask for tips.
We're roboticizing that now too. It's unfortunate, but let me think about it.
I'm big on the analog stuff. I put my phone away and go for hikes every weekend, and I, hang out with my family. I put my phone away. I'm like very happy not to have technology in the way for that.
Nice. All right.
Brad
That's
and
that.
Sam,
Brad and Sam, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
Well, we have a lot to think about, Kevin.
Sure do. Casey, what's next?
Well, I know what you're thinking, which is, can the show possibly go on longer? And yes, it can. Because here's the thing, and this I mean from the bottom of my heart, the very best thing about this show is hearing from you all. Look, when two men decide they love the sound of their own voices enough to start a podcast, you never know if you're going to hear anything back. But you guys email us each and every week, and we just wanted to talk to you directly. So here's what's going to happen. We have some people with roving microphones. They're going to be, sort of scurrying around. And if you want to ask us something, you can ask us now. And we're going to let it go on for a little bit. So I don't know. Let's get the energy up. Ask fun questions. If you have more of a comment, maybe save that for an Apple review. But we're excited to hear what's on your mind. And can I say, those of you who are wearing your hard fork hats, you look so beautiful.
So good.
What a memory you're creating for me. Okay, great. Now, does anyone have a question for the hard fork program?
Okay, this is a very hard question.
Yeah.
Last week you introduced the nickname Chapatiti.
Chapatiti, yes.
Which I have been using frequently.
Yeah.
And I would like to know what nickname you would use for each of the popular models.
Oh. Let's see.
I'm going to let you handle that one, Mr. Improv.
Well, of course, I feel like Geminini is kind of right there. Bing-a-ling-a-ling. I think...
Sometimes I do say Cloud, just because I think it's like
Cloud.
More of the authentic pronunciation.
Make it 2 syllables.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking that. Yeah. I'm serious. That was the right energy. Okay. What else would you like to know?
Hi, I love listening to you guys, so thank you. It's a highlight of my week. I feel like you have a better or a broader view of what's happening in the industry than maybe a lot of us do. So I might bring the vibe down a little bit, but what are you the most concerned about when you look at these like evolving technologies and how they'll impact our lives?
I think I'm most worried about the pace of change. I used to feel like when I left San Francisco, I was like going back in time about 18 months to anywhere else in the world, just in terms of the stuff we have here, the cars drive themselves, blah, blah, blah. Now I feel like that gap is opening up, and I'm really worried that the society as a whole is just not prepared either in terms of safety nets for people who may lose their jobs as a result of AI or other technologies, just in terms of it takes a lot of energy to absorb this much change all at once. And I'm not sure people sort of fully grasp what's happening. And I also, we've been around the block. I know that even the best intended technological projects have unintended consequences. So we saw this happen with social media. All these companies said, we're going to save the world and connect the world and everything's going to be great. And we've seen what's happened with that. So I hope that the folks in Silicon Valley, including some of the folks we've had on the stage tonight, are really thinking through some of the unintended consequences beforehand.
Yeah, to the extent that anything that happened over the past decade just made you concerned about the ability of lawmakers to regulate technology, we're now heading into an era where I do believe the technology is going to be even more powerful than Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. We still have not answered a lot of basic questions about, for example, how do children use this product safely? When should they start using it? When should they stop using it, right? We ran out of time. I really want to talk to Sam and Brad about the fact that the same week that they're signing a military contract, the same week that the Times is publishing a story about people, experiencing these extreme mental health challenges with ChatGPT, they're signing a deal with Mattel and they're saying we're going to put it into toys. Now, I talked to OpenAI about that and they said, well, we're going to build toys for families first and sort of kids 13 and up. But there's just a lot of unanswered questions here. And if I learned anything from the past 10 years, it's that you unfortunately cannot count on lawmakers to do any meaningful pushback. So honestly, one of the reasons why we make this show is because we just like talking to you about, here is a problem that no one actually has a plan for. So we'll keep doing that. Great question. I will call this person right here, sort of in the dead center. It's going to be challenging to get the microphone.
Just toss the mic.
No, this will be fun. Everybody can sort of, how does the microphone get to this person? Okay. And we're going to pass it down. And that's community. Beautiful.
Hi, I'm Hendrik. I love this show. I listen to it every week with my family. I'm a 13-year-old student, and I've always felt that I don't see much AI in my classrooms, in my friends' classrooms. And I was curious just to get your guys' opinion on how much AI you think maybe we should have in the classroom and how we should integrate it. Because I can see it from the teacher's perspective that it's like plagiarism. There needs to be balancing act. But from my perspective and from how I've used it, I just feel like it's actually really useful. So I'm just curious to get your view. Thanks.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think this is really crucial. I think a lot of schools reacted to ChatGPT and other AI chatbots by just sort of trying to stamp it out, banning it, detecting it. I think that was a mistake, and many of them have sort of come around to trying to say, how do we teach with this technology and about this technology? I think AI literacy is a really important thing for schools to be teaching because these are tools that people are going to be using in their jobs when they graduate and go out into the economy, if there still are jobs. And I think it's really naive to think that you're just going to take it out of the classroom. Now, I do think that teachers and schools need to revamp the way that they teach to sort of assume that people are going to have access to this stuff, and maybe use class time more for discussion and face-to-face interaction, and maybe assign homework differently. But I don't think this stuff is going away, and so I think the sort of enlightened schools are the ones that are sort of planning around its existence for the future.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Thank you for listening. I think, if I were 13 in this moment, the main thing that I would want to make sure that I took away from school was the ability to think critically. And I think the challenge is, when I was in high school, I didn't know how good is good enough at critical thinking. You know what I mean? I do believe that the more you use AI as a substitute for reading, for writing, your critical thinking skills are not going to develop to where they otherwise might. And so I think that is a good reason to make sure that you are actually, writing the essays that are assigned to you and, reading 1 out of every 3 books that's assigned to you. And I'll say that while so much focus is on the school stuff right now, I think very soon the conversation is going to shift to AIs as companions. And I have to say, I'm so much more worried about folks your age who feel like ChatGPT is a better friend to them than anyone that they know in their real life. That is such a dark path, and nothing is preventing us from walking down that path right now. So real friends over AI friends is what I would say to that. Okay, great questions. You call the next one.
Let's go up here. I picked the hardest possible spot. Okay. Oh, wow. You need the robot pants.
Thank you very much, Kevin and Casey. Love the show. You guys are awesome. Of any of the stories that you've had in the last 18 months, I think about this a lot. Which one would make the best Black Mirror episode?
The best Black Mirror episode to me is just you're trapped inside Italian brain rot. Like, you have an objective to accomplish, but like you have to get like Crocodilini Bombolini on board. Yeah, that comes to mind for me. How about you?
I think the AI friend stuff was... I liked when you had the conversation with Turing, my AI friend. He couldn't be here tonight, by the way, but he sends his regrets. It was a configuration error.
Yeah, tragic.
So yeah, that would be mine.
We didn't realize how big this venue was until we started asking people to run around with microphones.
You know, like a t-shirt cannon with microphones.
Hi. So you've had at least two different speakers tonight say that hardware is hard. And you showed us, a partial expensive exoskeleton, and that's promising. But, I really want the AI to get into a robot, a personal assistant, so that it can load my dishwasher, it can do the laundry, it'll fold the clothes, and it'll put them in the right drawer. Have you talked to anyone who has a realistic timeline and roadmap for this?
It's funny. We talked to several robots. One thing we knew about this show was there was going to be a damn robot on stage, okay? And we're so thrilled with Kathryn bringing her rig. But there are a number of other companies in San Francisco who are working on stuff like this. One of them is called Physical Intelligence. They've raised billions of dollars over the past several years. And the reason is that you can actually take a large language model, sort of similar to a ChatGPT, put it inside a robot, and it's much more useful than it was before. So that's kind of the reason that people think we're about to see this step change in function. But to your point, hardware is hard. I would say that in 2028, you will probably still be folding your own laundry. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
All right. Let's go right here.
Less of a light question, but twice you mentioned that OpenAI has these new defense contracts, which to me is very concerning, especially when Homeland Security is like grabbing people off the street. So I'm curious, like, if you know more of the details of that, and then just what your guys' take is.
The way that these contracts tend to start is like, there should be an AI assistant inside the Pentagon, and you could ask it, like, what missile do I put on this jet? And it's like, that's like, that's real. That's sort of what they are. And that's like the foot in the door. But to your point, like, yes, this goes like so many dark places so quickly. Facial recognition technology is already basically perfect. You combine that with AI systems, things get dark in a hurry. So, I don't know what to tell you other than like, yeah, I'm super worried about it. And I actually think that a role of journalism in this moment is just to point out what tech companies are doing with the military and, writing about what I imagine are going to inevitably some dark things.
Yeah, I don't love it either. I have some real qualms about it. And it's interesting, like some of the people who are building this technology from the beginning were so concerned about the use of this technology for military applications that they actually started requiring clauses in their contracts and acquisition deals. DeepMind had a sort of famous clause in its Google acquisition deal that they couldn't use their technology for the military. Now they've since sort of adapted that. But I think the tension here is that there's so much money to be made. The Defense Department has a huge budget. They're willing to spend lots of money to sort of catch up in AI. And yeah, it really, I don't love it. And I'm glad that there are people inside these companies who are sort of resisting that pull.
All right, I see somebody right here.
Thank you so much, longtime listener, and I just have to say I hope you guys do this again here in San Francisco. And
should we do it again?
Yeah. And I definitely feel like I'm listening to you right in my headphones. So whatever you're doing on stage is, it's definitely
But you
translating really
can't pause, and you can't make us faster, which is great.
I was really hoping Sam Altman would be here tonight. I'm so glad you guys got him. One of the questions I have for you guys, and maybe in your vast experience of covering AI and everything that's come about, one of the important things to me is regulation and how is that going to be someone you feel that comes forward from industry who kind of makes a bundle and then sort of sees the greater good and then really sort of goes from sort of poacher to gamekeeper and I mean how that's going to be a real quantum leap to my mind to get Congress and people really educated into how things need to move forward for our safety, and whether it's military or kids or anything else. Like, it impacts so many different people in so many different ways. I just thought, do you guys have someone in your mind who would be like top of mind that you would nominate for that role today, or do you see someone like Sam doing that in 10 years, 20 years?
I think we cannot look to the industry to lead this, right? I mean, Kevin, asked about this during the chat, but where a lot of these folks start is, oh no, the people building AI aren't safe enough. I'm going to do my own thing, and I'm going to do it differently and safer, and we're going to pass a lot of regulations, and then they get really successful, and they're like, I'm going to amend my comments about what I said, right? And so I think we just cannot sort of trust them to do that. There are a number of nonprofits who are working in this space, like the Future of Life Institute, that have really mobilized around this potential 10-year moratorium that we're seeing. But I will just say, 10 years to have no regulation at the state level is an extremely long time. Like, if you believe anybody who's come on our show, in 10 years, that will be sort of the end of the ball game. Very powerful intelligence is here. So what I hope is that as people learn more about this stuff, they push more, and I think we're gonna need to see some sort of bottom-up public participation here, because it's not gonna come from the industry.
All right, next.
Love the show. It's been said over and over.
And I'll say, we'll keep hearing it.
Several people that you've interviewed on the show in technology leaders, there's a lot of techno-optimism, and I think a lot of it is well-warranted. But one area where I'm kind of not buying it is and everybody will reap the benefits of the wealth and, the monetary benefits of this. And I understand how the people who create the AI reap the benefits of the well, but I have never heard anyone talk about how that trickles down or gets redistributed, and I'm wondering what you've heard.
This is such a good question. This drives me insane. When people just come on the show and they say, we had these guys on last week from Beck and I's, they said, this is all going to trickle down. We're all going to have, radical abundance. And it's that is a deliberate policy choice that many people do not want to make. That does not happen automatically. And so I think if I were, running these companies, which thank God I'm not, but you actually do have to be out there advocating for the kind of world that you want to see. It's not just enough to build the technology. It drives me insane. I'm just going to get this off my chest. I'm popping off tonight.
Preach it!
People are always comparing this to the Industrial Revolution. During the Industrial Revolution, there was a 50-year period called Engels' Pause, where productivity and profits went up, but wages did not. So workers, literally, for 50 years, did not see the benefits of the Industrial Revolution. What worries me when people say this is just going to be like the Industrial Revolution is that they have not actually read their history. It sucked for a lot of people for a long time, and I want them to know that.
Yeah, thank you. All right. I haven't really called on anyone over here. That's great.
Thank you so much. Love the show. I'll say it again.
Yes.
Long-time listener. So Casey in particular, I think you had mentioned a couple of weeks ago that you had a really clear picture of your definition of AGI.
Yeah.
And I wanted to hear more about that. And Kevin, interested in yours as well, but Casey seemed like you had a picture of it, and so I want to hear it.
Yeah, and I want to say that I'm not necessarily advocating for this as a perfect outcome, and I'm not rooting for this as happen as quickly as possible. But I work with an assistant who is amazing. She helps me schedule things. She helps me sell advertising. She helps me help you with customer service if you're a platform or subscriber and you need to change your email address. So when people say AGI to me, I think, oh, it will do that. Do you know what I mean? And I think everyone in this room has their version of that. There is kind of the subset of things that you do that are mostly routine, that feel a little bit like drudgery to you, that are not the sort of creative part of your job that's exercising all of your human muscles. And if 07, 8, 9 can just kind of do that layer of things, that would be AGI to me. Now, you know, I love my assistant. I want to keep working with her. So one question would be like, well, is there some new set of tasks that she could work on? That's to be explored. But when everybody is like, AGI, it's just a marketing concept. It's so fuzzy. It's like, no, it would just do what my assistant did. Does that sound crazy?
A little bit.
Okay.
You did talk about having an assistant a lot. Let's do one more.
Okay, I got it. So, gentlemen, last week, standing in my kitchen, chopping vegetables, listening to you earnestly try to give PR advice to Mechanize, and I almost cut my finger off because I was laughing so hard.
Lose a lot of fingers that way. Yes.
So I want to give you the opportunity to give PR advice to 4 or 5 other companies that you think might need it right now.
To PR advice?
Yeah.
Let's see, who needs it right now? Meta could use some PR advice, and here's why. They think that when you go around saying we're offering people $100 million, that people are gonna be like, wow, that's so cool. When what it really means is you would have to pay me $100 million to work at Meta.
I can't top that. Let's take a selfie.
Yay!
Put on your hats. Hats on, please. We don't have hats.
No.
Here, you've got long arms. Why don't you do this?
All right. We're gonna get as many of you as you. In fact, we'll take a few, and you've turned it into video mode, Kevin.
Okay.
All right. We're just gonna kind of cruise around the room so we can make sure we get everybody. Let's see.
All right.
I think that's everyone. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you.
Thank
That was
you.
Hardcore Live. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. You're the best. We did it.
Should we get our baton?
We're leaving. Goodbye. Oh.